Welcome to On the JoB with your host, Lynn Parrish, editor of the Journal of Business. On the JoB is about the Inland Northwest business community, where you'll hear firsthand the backstories from the men and women reporters at the Journal of Business. On the JoB is brought to you in part by McNeese Wheeler Attorneys. Here's Lynn.
Welcome to On the JoB with me, Lynn Parrish. JoB stands for Journal of Business, and I'm the editor there. I'm here with Samantha Peone. She's one of our reporters. We've got Vinny in the booth trying to make us sound less mumbly, so let's get started. Welcome, Sam.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good.
Good. So we're going to talk today. Sam had a bunch of good stories in our last edition, the one that, our most recent edition, the one that comes out today. But the one we chose to focus on was your story about the trend in the number of realtors in the Spokane-Coeur market. What did you find when you looked into that trend?
Well, in short, there are a lot of realtors right now, and agents in general. It's harder to gauge the number of agents because agents, you can just pretty much get a license and be an agent. Whereas for realtors, you have to be a member of the National Association of Realtors. And we have the Spokane branch, and then there's the Coeur d'Alene branch as well. So we were able to get figures from them of the numbers of realtors. And we have seen with Spokane, there's about 22,000 realtors right now versus about 1940 at the beginning of this year. They project that to be 2,100 by the end of this year, which is a bit of a jump.
Yeah, sure.
So, and it does depend on who you ask whether they think that there are too many realtors, which we'll get to.
Sure.
But with Coeur d'Alene in particular, I mean, it's crazy. The recession low was about 840. They jumped over 500 realtors in the past 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's something. So over 600 realtors entering that profession, or re-entering, I suppose theoretically, but entering that profession within yet this year. Do you remember what the overall tally is for Coeur d'Alene right now?
Yeah, I want to say it's about 1,800.
Okay, so almost as many realtors in Coeur d'Alene as there are in Spokane.
I know it's a tighter market too.
But it's also population-wise about a quarter of the size.
Exactly.
So that's pretty interesting.
So yeah, so that's it's pretty, I guess, tight right now. There's a lot of competition. Which
now it sounds like this isn't entirely surprising that the number of realtors ebbs and flows with the economy. Is that what you found?
Yeah, that's the case, and it does make sense when you think about it because real estate is such an economic, highs and lows kind of business.
Sure.
So
home sales, at least. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So during the recession, there was just floods leaving, and now that we're at the height of another market, though there are many different problems than there were back then. You're seeing a ton of new people join into the market as well, and there's not much risk to that either, joining into the market for brokerages. So.
Yeah. Well, why don't we just jump ahead to that real quick and talk about that? What did brokers have to say about this trend?
Well, it actually depends on the broker you talk to.
Sure.
Broker, agent, different things. It's very minute. But it does.
Boss. What does the boss have to say about it?
So the boss says that there is really no harm in hiring extra realtors. Because that was a question I asked. I said, why add more agents when there's already so many agents? And that was a big, I wouldn't say issue, but kind of a big point of contention with a number of people I talked to. Some said it was oversaturated. Some said that, yeah, there's a ton, but it could be worse, and others said, yeah, we have a lot, but it's not the end of the world. I spoke with Scott Wetzel over with Windermere, and he said that there's no really downside to hiring new agents because they're independent contractors. So they make their own money. They make their own sales. And if they don't sell anything, all you really lose out on is training them, essentially.
Sure. So some soft costs, but not a lot of hard costs that go into adding someone, relative to adding another type of full-time employee.
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
so they don't have a salary, they don't have wages. It's all strictly commission. So.
And he had a good point of even if you're bringing in someone who doesn't have any experience, they're bringing with them their sphere of influence. Those aren't the words he used, but the people that they know.
Yeah, exactly. And one person that I mean, maybe selling, like in my example, no, never mind.
No, that's right. Go for it.
So we have another family member that's selling a house, and we just use my agent for that,
Yeah,
and
sure.
so it really expands if you take care of your clients, essentially,
Sure. So one of the ways that you approached this story was you talked about, you looked at the projected number of home sales this year and compared that to the number of realtors. Why don't you go into a little bit of that for us?
So in Spokane, I can't think of the ratio off the top of my head in Coeur d'Alene, but in Spokane it's about 4 to 1 we're seeing. So about 8,000 homes are expected to be sold this year.
Sure.
Yeah, and again, about 2,000 realtors. So there will be some people potentially who aren't making money, but there is one thing that I wanted to bring up with this. And yes, inventory is down and a number of other things.
Sure.
But one thing that Rob Higgins with the Association of Realtors, he gave me these numbers. He said that 20% of the agents, 20% of the population makes 80% of the money.
Sure.
It's just an old saying. And that applies to real estate too. Some people go into this and they're realtors or whatnot, and it's just a part-time retirement kind of thing.
Sure.
I know a good example I can think of is maybe they're a stay-at-home mom, something like that. And,
Right.
And so they go into it, but it's not their profession,
Sure.
It's more a side gig. And so they aren't bringing in as many sales as someone who's saying maybe full-time. So
Right.
we are saturated with realtors, but I don't know, I guess what I'm saying is from what he said, I don't know how accurate it would be to say that the inventory shortages right now may be affecting certain populations of those realtors.
Yeah, right. So in other words, not all realtors are created equal.
Exactly.
And I wouldn't be surprised if the ratio is even more skewed than that,
Yeah.
where it's 10% who are making, 90% of the sales, or
Exactly.
I mean, that's an exaggeration, but
Yeah.
something along those
Exactly,
lines. So
yeah.
I think from what you were saying, the ratio is even smaller on the Coeur d'Alene side. I want to say it was something close to one realtor for every 2 home sales.
It's like 1 to 2 or 1 to 3. Yeah. It was something crazy. And I talked to Jared McFarland over with the Coeur d'Alene Association of Realtors.
Sure.
And he had said that they had just let 12 new brokerages in at their last meeting into their multiple listing service. And of course, off the top of my head, I didn't know what that means, but he's like, that's a lot.
Yeah, right.
So they're seeing it. And Melissa Murphy, someone I talked to over at Prime Real Estate, she owns that. They just opened their first physical location over in Coeur d'Alene, excuse me, they will next month. And they've been working in that market for some time now, and they just said, it's really high competition right now over there. And so she recommended, if you're looking to become a real estate agent in the area and you don't know much about the market here, to start in Spokane, because there are more transactions going on and you can just get your foot in the door better.
Yeah, well, that's great. That's good advice. Good stuff. Well, Sam, you had a couple other good stories this time with our real estate section, and then looking at what's going on with the new or the old Costco building. The new Costco, does it open today or tomorrow?
So the new one opens tomorrow, yes.
Yeah. So Sam talked about or reported on what's going to be going into the old Costco building on North Division. So pick up a copy of the paper and check that out, or go to SpokaneJournal.com and see everything that Sam's been working on. Thanks for joining us today, and enjoy that sunshine.
Patrick Johnson is honored to seek your vote for Spokane County District Court Judge, Position 1. Patrick is a committed public servant, having served 20 years at the Spokane County Prosecutor's Office, where he has prosecuted serious felony cases. Patrick is also a major in the U.S. Army Reserve's Judd Advocates General Corps, where he defends the legal rights of those who defend America. Patrick is seeking to replace Judge Peterson, who is retiring this year. Join Judge Peterson and the dozens of current and former judges who endorse Patrick Johnson for judge.
Hi, this is Kurt Stockwell with Well Dressed Walrus. We are a local website design and development company here in Spokane. What we do is build beautiful, usable websites for local businesses. A website needs to be beautiful, it needs to be usable for your users, your customers, and yourself. Contact us anytime. We'd love to talk with you about your online marketing.
The following is sponsored by our friends and community supporters at McNeese Wheeler Attorneys. McNeese Wheeler is a boutique law firm in Spokane, handling matters in both Washington and Idaho. Areas of law include business law, wills, trusts and estates, family law, personal injury and wrongful death, and real estate matters. For your full-service legal needs, contact McNeese Wheeler Attorneys. The economy is getting stronger. Banks are lending again, and interest rates are at historic lows. Now is a great time to buy your dream home. The caring and knowledgeable professionals at Homes for You have been helping people just like you for over 20 years. They take the time to listen to what you want and will help you find just the right home in Washington or Idaho. Real estate is what we do at Homes for You, 928-5782, or visit online at homes4uspokane.com.
Hi, welcome back to On the JoB. I am not Lynn Parrish. This is Lynn Parrish. I'm Sam Peone, and I will be interviewing my editor today because he wrote a great story on executive pay in Spokane. Hi, Lynn. Welcome.
Hey, thanks, Sam. Appreciate it.
So tell us a little bit about executive pay, kind of what it is and what results you saw.
Yeah, so every year what we do is we look at SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission filings that public companies make that spell out what their executives are going to make this year. They're generally called, or what they're proposing them to make. So these are what are called proxies that are made for shareholders to vote on, for boards of directors, and for what are called named executive officers, which are basically the top 5 executives in each company. Mm-hmm. So what we do is we take a look at those numbers, how they compare to previous years, compile them all, and come up with an average and look at how average pay for that group of executives has changed one year to the next.
Gotcha. So what were the results this year about?
Well, I've done this for 8 years now,
Yeah.
and this was an unusual year because executive pay had jumped 23%. Average
Oh, wow.
Total compensation had jumped 23%, but there's a huge but in there. Mm-hmm. That's actually mostly one company's executives receiving huge jumps in pay in the order of 400% to 700% because of one-time compensation that they received after an unusual event, basically. Mm-hmm. So the company is called Gold Reserve, and they have had this fascinating story, fascinating from a journalist standpoint, probably heart-wrenching from theirs,
Yeah.
where they had a mining property in Venezuela. Mm-hmm. They expected and billed it as having the potential to be the largest gold deposit in South America.
Yeah.
In 2008, the Venezuelan government expropriated, I believe that's the word we used, took it back, took control of the mine.
Yeah.
And from that point on, Gold Reserve had been in a legal battle with the Venezuelan government. A couple years ago, the ruling finally came down in Gold Reserve's favor, and they renegotiated a little bit and started getting some money from
Government.
Venezuela. They also had made an agreement to go back into business on this mine with the government, and now they're starting to develop that mine. So anyway, they had received large chunks of long overdue, not late, but money that they'd been waiting for a long time, and that went toward these executives, seeing the payday that they reaping the awards of all the work they've been doing over the last 10 years, in large part.
So in short, the median would be more accurate in this particular situation to determine executive pay than the average.
Yeah, so data geeks, in addition to myself, often will talk about median being a truer gauge than average, and this is a perfect example of that, because the median is actually, if you look at the median pay, it's actually a little bit lower this year than it was in 2016. When I say this year, what we're looking at is 2017 numbers that were released this year. So yeah, the median was actually a little bit lower than it had been the previous year. And if you take Gold Reserve out of the equation, then yeah, it's down. And it's interesting how much one company in a small sample size like this, and it is a small sample size, we're talking 8 companies with 40 executives, it really skews the numbers overall.
Yeah, definitely. So 40 executives across 8 companies. So why those 8? Is it because they're...
Oh, sure. Because they're publicly traded.
Publicly traded.
So we're talking about publicly traded companies that are headquartered in Spokane or Coeur d'Alene. I believe 7 of the 8 are in the Spokane area. And so it's an extremely small sample size, but a telling one.
Gotcha. So one thing that I saw when I was looking at the chart is the executive pay chart is
Sure.
that there is a huge difference between salary and total pay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a great point. So total compensation includes stock options and pension plan changes. These things that don't equate to take-home pay. So when you look at someone's, I think the top person on the chart was Philip Measy, the CEO of Itron, and his total compensation was around $5.9 million, but his take-home was nowhere close to that. So we also report on salary and bonus only as another indicator of the trend and how things are going. So
Interesting. Yeah. And speaking of trends, were there any other trends that you saw this year compared to last year's or anything like that?
Well, one thing that I'd like to point out is after doing this for so many years, it seems to me like the trends in executive pay don't correspond with, in really any way, unless coincidentally, with overall median income. So we saw numbers recently that said the statewide median income had increased 5%. I think locally it's closer to the 4% area in our last numbers, and then it's actually down. If you take this anomaly out, it's down for executives in this group. There was a time in 2011 when the economy was still really struggling, and we saw a bigger increase in executive pay, which the optics on that aren't good. but now when things are more vibrant for others, it doesn't equate to that for this group necessarily.
Interesting. So it almost seems to be an inverse of the rest of the population.
Not necessarily, because sometimes they'll go up. And when we talk about going up, this is a 23% increase if you include everybody. But in past years, it's usually somewhere between 1 to 5%, which is a lot more what you'd see in terms of swings with the general population. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Well, thanks so much. Was there anything else you wanted to say?
Well, I did want to point out that one of the things that we looked at this time was the representation of women on the chart. So there were 9 of the 40 executives this year were women, which is just under 25%, just under a quarter, which is maybe a little bit higher than the national average, but still probably not where we want to be. That said, it's 2 more women than were on the chart last year when it was 7 of 41. So I don't know exactly how to interpret that, but I thought it was interesting to note.
Definitely. And so I know who was the highest paid woman then?
So this year, it was Linda Massman, who is the CEO of Clearwater Paper Corporation. And she came in 8th overall, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here, Lynn.
Thanks,
Thank
Sam.
you for letting me sit in your seat.
Thanks for taking it easy on me.
Yeah, and have a great summer day. Enjoy the heat.
On the JoB is produced in Spokane, Washington by SpokaneTalksOnline.com, which is solely responsible for its content. On the JoB is brought to you by our friends at McNeese Wheeler Attorneys. Ask Lynn a question, recommend a guest, and hear this program again online anytime at SpokaneTalksOnline.com.